Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world. I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm Dutch Mantell.
Still Dutch Mantell.
I'm still Dutch Mantell.
All right, wrestling fans, stand by. We're going to have a lot of fun. A brand new Wrestling Insider Special Edition is now. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world. I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Johnny, the fans just haven't asked for it. They have demanded it.
This August, we're headed back to Tampa for WrestleHouse 2.
WrestleMania weekend, we brought you Sinister Minister James Mitchell, TJP, Demolition Smash, Al Snow, Dutch Mantell, Zeb Coulter, JTG of Crime Time, and WWE Hall of Famer Gerald Briscoe for in-depth interviews and live interactive cyber autograph signings.
And if you want our Wednesday Night Wrestling Insider Special Edition episodes to continue, we need your help to bring these superstars' careers and lives to life.
Bringing you free content 7 days each week is an expensive proposition. Between appearance fees, air travel, renting the house, the equipment, and everything that goes in to a week of shooting, we can't do it without you.
As we prepare to return to producing live in-ring events, help us bring you the superstars and legends of yesterday and tomorrow by visiting Indiegogo now and check out some of the great rewards.
Wrestling fans, it's going to be a wild week in Tampa the first week in August. Get ready for WrestleHouse 2.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to another Wrestling Insider Special Edition, the Wednesday Night Delight, warming us up for our Thursday night party with Marty. But Dutch, it is a pleasure to have you back. The first full-length episode we had with you was a little deep. This, I think, a little lighter, a little bit more fun.
Good.
Talking about some of your memories throughout the King of Sports. WWF is one, right now, nostalgia is cool. The fans love to talk about the 80s and 90s, where there is such a decline in popularity across not just WWE, but the entire industry right now. Whether you look at television ratings, before coronavirus television attendance, merchandising, licensing, almost every aspect of the genre that you look at, it is
So changed.
It's bad. Even yesterday, I think you, as I heard when I was showering back in my luxury suite, even yesterday at the Universal Studio Amusement Park during the biggest week of the year, WrestleMania, I saw one person with a wrestling t-shirt on, which blew me away.
Well, it's definitely changed over the last, well, it's changed in the last 3 years, but talking about 20 years ago, totally different outlook. And but see, wrestling changes through the decades anyway. And you know, pro wrestling is really not that old. It's less than 100 years old as a sport, as a entertainment form. So, and it is constantly changing because it has to, and we end up with what we got today. It's mostly, I don't know what it is today.
That's a great way to put it. There's a lot of, as Kevin Nash says, a lot of Abercrombie and Fitch looking models on.
Yes.
Little smaller guys.
Yep.
That is not the direction we're going to go here. The fans had wanted your recollection, your memories of the time that was 1994. You had spent some time in Smoky Mountain. You had spent some time in Puerto Rico. Very late in 1994, what led you to open up discussions to come to WWE, then known as the World Wrestling Federation?
Well, in 1994, I was primarily working as a booker in Puerto Rico. And it was, you could only go so far there with making money. And I thought I had reached the peak of what I could do, and I was kind of burnt out anyway. So I used to make a call to WWF headquarters about once a month.
Oh, really?
I actually called so many times the receptionist knew my voice. I say, hello, is Vince in? Oh, hi, Dutch. I didn't have to say who it was. She knew the voice. And she said, well, you know, you know the drill. He's not in. And I knew the drill, and I said, well, can you tell him that I called? Because, you know, when he looks who called, he's going to see Dutch. So I happened to call one day, and I was at home. It was around Christmas, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And I called and left a message. And I got a call back from Jim Dillon. That is
J.J. Dillon, yep.
J.J. Dillon. I got a call back, and he says, Dutch. I said, yeah. He says, well, you know, we were just talking about you. Really? And I says, well, before you talk too much, I have an idea. And this is where I learned that if you want to go somewhere, have an idea that they don't have to think about too much. I said, you're bringing Ron and Don Harris in, because they had already told me. I said, what about if I come in and manage those guys? He says, that's not a bad idea. Let me run it by the old man. So he went in there, and I guess he talked to Vince. It had to be short. And he called me back 30 minutes later.
Wow.
He said, great idea. He said, can you start this date? Give me a date. I said, okay. And that's how it was said. That quick.
That quick? That easy?
Oh, that quick.
Wow. Now, did they have you come up to Connecticut to sign a contract or do vignettes, or you just kind of showed
I
up
just showed up. Then I signed the stuff.
at the TV taping?
Yeah. I didn't go up there. They didn't fly me up there to sign this and that and the other. And I just showed up, and you mind signing this? And I said, yeah, I signed it. So I managed Ron and Don Harris as the Blue Brothers, and that's how it started.
How did you find out that the Harrises were coming in?
Well, I was talking to them.
Oh, they told you, okay.
I lived in Nashville then. They lived in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
And they called me and told me. And I actually suggested it to them, and they liked the idea. Because Ron and Don are not good talkers.
No.
So they actually needed somebody. I actually liked the gimmick. There's two mountain guys, and they looked as mountainy as you could get. And I was their uncle, who was really, the story was I was really kind of leeching off them by taking them to the big city wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it started.
Wow. Interesting stuff right there. I think that was a team that they could have done more with, but we'll talk about that as time goes on.
Well, they could do a lot more with everybody they bring up there if they wanted to. This is what a lot of people don't realize, how many talents that WWE has under contract at one time. I will say today they probably just on the major roster between SmackDown and Raw, they got probably 80 or 90 guys that they can call upon. And that's not counting NXT.
Right.
So, and NXT is actually a pretty good version of what they really want WWE to be. I haven't watched any of it, but I hear good things on the NXT.
Yeah, I mean, as far as a show that's aimed more towards adult men, I would say yes. I would agree with that. I think Raw and SmackDown are more aimed towards everybody. And when you try and make, what's the old saying goes, when you try and make everybody happy, you really don't make anyone happy.
No.
And that's why I think you've seen such a free fall in so many popularity metrics, whether it be the TV ratings, the licensing, the merchandise. You can't gauge live attendance right now, but even with WrestleMania taking place the weekend of this event, even that's not sold out with the allotment of tickets they put on sale.
Well, it's an unusual situation.
It sure is.
Because they limited the tickets they could sell.
Right.
And then at the last moment, within the last 2 weeks, we're right here at WrestleMania right now. That's when we're doing this interview. In the last 2 weeks, they lifted the limited condition they had them under, and now they won't be full, but they'll probably be half full.
Oh no! I mean, it's only
set at 20-some
25 right now.
25. I think they'll probably have 40.
Well, we took a sneak peek in the arena the other day, and there were a lot of cardboard cutouts sitting in chairs. So we'll have to see what that looks like. When it actually takes place at Raymond James Stadium, again, the weekend we're taping this, it'll be the first, I can't think of such a long gap when I had not been around promoting or witnessing live wrestling ever. And since the first time I went.
It may be a new experience for you.
Well, the little guy he's not so little in the Nike shirt over there. He's never seen WrestleMania.
The one who used to weigh 300 pounds.
No, that's Glantz. He's a shooter, but he's not a little Marati. He may be in spirit, he is. But
hey, this is an energy drink, people, not a beer.
All right. This is.
I wish it was a beer.
This is not an energy drink, people, but it's not a beer.
That's straight up wine. About 20%.
It's not wine. It's not wine.
Oh, okay.
A little vodka.
I'll take your word for it.
All right, thank you. What did you think initially of the Blue Brother concept? I mean, when you spoke with Ron and Don, did they have an idea what they were going to be when they came into the WWF, or did they just know they were going?
No, they had an idea, but nobody knew how to make it work. I don't even think they had an idea how to make it work. But sometimes to get to Vince, that's a chore in and of itself. I used to go try to see Vince, and you'd sit out, and it's like in a waiting room at a doctor's office, and you sit there and you just look around, and there's Bill down there, and there's somebody else wants to talk, and who's the most important one out of that is who goes first.
Right.
And I sat around a couple of times wanting to see Vince, didn't get in, and after a while you say, well, I'm not going to get in. There's no need to even go down there. And they would tell you sometimes, well, he's only seeing so-and-so today, or I said, okay, whatever. So, but it's hard to get to see Vince unless you're a really top name and he's got time for you.
And to be fair, on the day of those TV tapings, he is a man that is overwhelmingly busy trying to prepare for it.
He's covered up.
Yeah.
Not only is he dealing with talent, he's dealing with production. He's dealing with this. He may be dealing with lawyers. He may be dealing with legal, or some incident came up, or who knows what he's dealing with. And he doesn't have time to sit down and lollygag for 10 minutes with somebody with an idea, especially if you're not really kind of high on the hog anyway, you're not going to get to see him.
Do you recall your first meeting with Vince? Your first impression of the man when you got face to face with him?
Well, it was like, I had met him like in Memphis shortly.
Oh, okay.
Because he did that.
When he did that heel gimmick?
He did a little Memphis run. But I never really sat down, and my last run in WWE, I kind of talked to him a little bit. Nice guy, very business oriented. I mean, he's not going to chit chat and, kid around with you. It's all business. That's why he's worth $2 billion.
Right.
It's all business with the guy.
That's why our show is worth so much less. We have too much fun, I guess. The Blue Brothers, early on, they would be in fed squash match after squash match after squash match. Did you have high expectations for what they could do with Ron and Don Harris? Or Jacob and Eli Blue, I guess?
Well, they could have taken them higher. But I remember the first WrestleMania we were on. I'd been in the business at this time over 20 years. So I remember the first WrestleMania I was ever on. I think it was 11, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Connecticut.
Hartford, Connecticut, the first one I was at too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
So we go out there, but I mean, before we go out there, we had this meeting, and Tony Gurria called it. Let's go and let's find out what we're going to do tonight. That's the finish.
He was the agent for your match?
And we went in there and sat down, and now I'm not in the match. So I'm letting them try to work it out. It was Lex Luger and Davey Boy.
Right.
So they started talking back and forth, and I'm listening. I'm going, God, this and that. About an hour went by, nothing. It's like an 8-minute match. I went, what are you going to, I mean, in Memphis, we'd have had an 8-minute match put together in like 45 seconds. I mean, do this and this and this and that, and we're gone. But see, I didn't know what they could do or what they wanted to do. So I said, okay, let them work it out. They sat there for over 2 hours. And finally, and Tony Gurria would come in, well, we got anything? Well, not yet. He was going, what the hell? How long is it going to take these guys? Finally, it got to the point I just said, guys, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we get heat on, I forgot what the finish was. Let's get heat on Davey Boy, do this, 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 and then do the finish. And they went, that's good. That's good. That's what we'll do. It's a simple finish. It was a small package anyway. I mean, how much you got to go through? And Lex kept saying, I don't think Lex would do that. He kept talking about himself in third person. I went, I don't know what Lex would think. I hope he likes it. So we went out and we did it. And a funny thing happened. We went out, when they turned the lights out, we went first. And we got in the ring and sold out. And they were loud
yeah.
fans. And I remember, here come Davey Boy and Lex, the spotlight on them. And I was standing in the middle of the ropes watching them.
Mhm.
And I didn't know at the time that Donnie used to hit the ropes all the time. He hit the ropes the other side and he come running toward me and he hit the ropes and I went flying out.
Did you?
I almost hit the barricade. And I'm just so glad it was kind of dark in there.
Yeah.
And
No
I
one
got
really
up and
saw
I
it,
said,
unless they were up close.
damn. And I already had a hurt ankle
Hmm.
anyway, because we had a some kind of promotional deal at Times Square
Hmm. Just a
New
few
York-
days before. Yep.
in New York City. And you remember the steps they used to put around the corners?
Yep.
Well, they didn't put it around the corners. They put it like on the straight edge of the ring.
Hmm.
Of course, it's got a big hole for the pole. So, and I'm half blind anyway. And I remember when we got out of the ring, we did promos against Davey Boy and Lex. Because you can imagine how Lex's interview was. Just
Yeah.
about dry and toast.
Absolutely.
So anyway, and when I stepped out, they would say, "Get out, we gotta go." Because they're constrained by time. I stepped right through that hole.
Really?
But my right leg went through, and I almost broke my ankle on the left side.
Jesus.
I said, "Damn!" But anyway, that was just leading into it. So I remember we also had like a banquet
Hmm.
you remember that?
Before WrestleMania?
Yeah, it was some kind of banquet for the super fans or whatever.
That I don't. I know they had a fan fest all weekend.
Well, that's what it was.
Oh, okay.
We had to go to that and sit down and got to eat with these people and talk to these fans, which was okay. It's fine. But my ankle was hurting so bad, I almost couldn't even hardly go to that. And I said, nope, I'm going to make WrestleMania. If my leg is broke, I'm still going to make it. So I went through all that to make this show that you went to.
Did you have any aspirations maybe at that point of trying to morph your way into the office?
Well, I kept hearing horror stories about it.
Mhm.
I kept hearing these horror stories from these writers and not the agents, but the writers they kind of put the show together. That Vince, if you were like on the road, he'd call you at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, be in my room at 8 o'clock. And they'd rewrite the whole show. So he would call you and sometimes you get back to the hotel, he'd call another meeting. And listen, and I'd see those writers walk in there like this, they're going, God damn. I said, you get drunk? He said, get drunk? Hell, I've stayed up all night. Because he pushes everybody. See, Vince only sleeps like 3 hours a night. And that's how he goes. He was like Trump. Trump didn't, he thought about business all the time. That's why he's worth a couple of billion, or was. I don't know what he's worth now. And Vince thinks everybody needs to work as hard as he does. But I need my sleep. So I kept hearing these horror stories. And some of these writers, they don't even know wrestling. The agents.
Nowadays, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
even back then, they still didn't. They knew wrestling, that kind of, the outer model of it. They kind of knew what they were trying to do, but didn't understand how to get there.
Mhm.
See, wrestling is a strange entertainment form.
It sure is.
And I also, another thing I didn't want to kind of be involved in is, you remember the movie, who said this? It was, I want the least amount of responsibility possible. Who said that? Who said that in that movie, guys? Remember it? It was Stacy or who?
I want the least amount of responsibility possible.
I can't remember who said it.
In my
But that
next
was-
life, I want that to be tattooed on my tombstone.
But I didn't want to be, also, if you was on creative, they want you to come and stay in Stamford.
So you didn't want to move.
Hell no. To Stamford, Connecticut. It's cold as hell. And nothing wrong against the town.
Mhm.
But then it's like being on call 24 hours a day. I didn't like that. I mean, if he'd have paid me enough money, yeah, I guess. But I didn't see these riders driving around in damn big cars and whatever,
Yeah.
because they'd drive around with a little damn 6-cylinder damn Fiat or whatever, a rental car. And I just didn't want to do it.
Mhm.
because I could, committees are this. Because I've been on committees. I hate committees. It's like if I'm pitching an idea, I got to convince you and this other writer and that writer and this writer and then Kevin Dunn and then Vince and maybe Pat Patterson at the time. That's a big order.
It's not just one person, right?
And even and a thing about the writers, they write this stuff out. This is the story. One time I was talking to this writer. I said, "How long you been here?" "Oh, I've been here like, I don't know, 6 months or whatever." And I'm thinking, and Vince doesn't like writers that are wrestling fans. You know that, right?
Yeah.
He wants writers that have they're really journalists, I guess. So he wrote this interview for me, and I went, "Brother, where did you work before you came here?" And he said, "Oh, I worked back at the Albany, Poughkeepsie, Times Journal, Gazette Daily, or something." And I just looked at him. I said, not to be disrespectful, but to work for the Poughkeepsie Daily Journal, Gazette Daily, or whatever, does not a wrestling writer make. I said, "This is the shits." He says, "Well, what's wrong with it?" I said, "Well, it'd be quicker to tell you what's right with it, which is nothing." So I corrected a few things and we went on. And this is another thing. If you have an idea, you can't give it to a writer, even though it's a great idea, because he doesn't understand wrestling. He understands, I guess, writing, because if they went in there to pitch it to Vince, they wouldn't pitch it, first thing, because they don't know what they're pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And if Vince calls upon them to defend it or answer a question about it, they can't even do that.
They don't even know how.
They don't know what they're doing, to tell you the truth. And even some of the agents don't see that. They know how to put a match together. They don't know how to tell the story, the overall story. See, that's why I was so successful in Puerto Rico. I put the whole story together, and there was one creative guy there. That was me. I didn't have to ask anybody else, "Hey, you like this?" I didn't give a crap. If I liked it, I did it. And I had nothing but success there.
All right, wrestling fans, I got the cue from my partner in crime, Mr. Dave Willis, in the back. Right now, I'm going to take a brief time out as he moves on up. Just like George Jefferson, we'll be back in just a moment. Stand by. Wrestling fans around the corner, around the world, I'm Dan Marty.
And I'm John Cena Sr.
Johnny, the momentum here in Boston wrestling continues as we continue to build and build and build. The fans want to know, how do we help? We subscribe to the Patreon, but we see all the great merchandise on that set. Coronavirus may have killed the nightlife, especially for someone like Marty, but our acclaimed eBay store is open 24/7 around the world.
Wow. Check it out.
Arguably the greatest professional wrestler of all time. Get this limited edition collector's autograph print personally signed by two-time WWE Hall of Famer Nature Boy Ric Flair, inscribed 16 times for each of his recognized World Championship reigns. One of only 50 made direct from our friends at WWE. Also signed by original artist Rob Schamberger. Help keep wrestling legends working. Get this awesome Ric Flair collectible for your wrestling collection now. Boston Wrestling Sports and the MWF explodes into a new year of unknown with professional wrestling content galore, and we need you to join our family. Every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. after we review the previous night's Monday Night Raw, it's Wrestling Insiders at your house with the unpredictable WWE Hall of Famer, Mr. USA, Tony Atlas. Wednesday nights after WWE, NXT, and AEW at 10 p.m., you never know who's going to show up on Wrestling Insiders Special Edition. Every Thursday night at 10 p.m. after our NXT and Dynamite review, it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll journey through the 80s and 90s on Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty. Friday nights after the lights go down at the Thunderdome on SmackDown, it's John Cena Sr.'s Wrestling Insiders Fabulous Fridays. Plus, look for classic clips, bonus live episodes, pay-per-view watch-alongs, and more. If you want early, ad-free access to all of our Wrestling Insider talk shows, our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library, and to help keep wrestling legends working during the worst of times, for less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, join our growing family at patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. Expect the unexpected in 2021.
WWE is coming home to Kansas City with Monday Night Raw. WWE is back with Monday Night Raw in Kansas City, Monday, July 26th. Tickets on sale now.
Wrestling fans, especially here in the Boston area, we want to thank our great friends at Red Rose for their support for all of our charitable endeavors and programming efforts. Red Rose is 2 years young and extremely thankful for all the support they've had from our neighbors here in Melrose and beyond for an amazing first 2 years. Red Rose thanks Melrose and all of the first responders who have fought the good fight and have never given up hope during these unprecedented times. We did it together. Follow Red Rose on Facebook for their anniversary special, facebook.com/Red Rose Melrose. You'll be glad you did. Open until 2 a.m. Red Rose will give you fresh, piping hot, mouth-watering food that'll put an ear-to-ear smile on even the toughest critic's face. Check out their full menu online at redrosema.com or give them a call, 781-620-1889.
Wrestling fans, welcome back to Wrestling Insider Special Edition. Very happy to be joined by my longtime friend Dutch Mantell. We've had some fun, many WrestleMania weekends, and instead of bringing you to us, we kind of came to you for this one, now that you've relocated to the Sunshine State.
Yeah, I've been down here about 2 years. I like Florida, I really do.
Now,
How's this mustache look?
It's unique. I don't think mine could twirl that far yet.
Well, it could.
Well, I'd have to really stretch it. It'd be like trying to stretch a penny into a...
That's what she said.
Well... Vicente Ray has a little bit more flexibility in certain areas. But that's
I got it.
That's all right. What was the landscape like to you when you entered the world of WWF in 1995? It was probably the worst year in company history.
Brutal.
As far as box office, you had
Brutal.
on top Kevin Nash, who got over very strong as badass, kick-ass Diesel. And then they decided to put all three championships on him within the course of less than a year. He beat Bob Backlund in 8 seconds at the famed Madison Square Garden. And then within a week, he went from this badass, kick-ass individual to a man that found a new theme song, great humor, jokes, fun. They went from a kick-ass pro wrestler to the sports entertainment version of Diesel, and he went on to become probably the worst drawing world champion in company history.
And it reflected it in the paycheck. Because contracts were written, very few guys had guaranteed contracts.
I guess you weren't one of them.
No, I wasn't one of them. And let me just say that the utopia I thought I was entering didn't turn out to be so utopian. It's more like a dystopian experience. Probably one of the, not the worst experiences I've ever had, but, you know, the travel was brutal. We'd go to the shows, they'd do a half-ass. You know, there was, where they might expect a $100,000 house, it'd be 50. And on 50, they'd lose money. So you know you're not going to make any money.
Right.
And a lot of guys were actually living off, you know, you got a $200.
draw, yeah.
You lived on, you got to draw $200. It took you $200 to get through the day. So you had to take the draw. And that was, and when you got your check back, of course, everything was taken out in draws. Unless you had a big Madison Square Garden show. I think I had a Madison Square Garden appearance, and I swear to God, this is no wrestling saying, I could have stood in the middle of the ring and shot a shotgun off in the place and not hit nobody.
When MSG
it was like 5,000 people
yeah.
there. It was terrible.
That's even now the litmus test. What was Vince McMahon saying? How goes the garden is how goes the state of the industry at the time. And when you're drawing 5,000 at MSG, things aren't going very well at all.
Well, if he used that as a barometer, he kind of knew that the fucking business was horrible. So I don't know how long it took him to decide that Kevin wasn't the answer. But who did they have Kevin working with?
First Backlund, which were very uninspired matches, rematches from the championship win that he got an MSG. He did the pay-per-view shot the night you debuted at Royal Rumble 95 against Bret in a double babyface match. They built up Shawn as an opponent for him at WrestleMania 11, your WrestleMania debut. But, the fans were really taken to Shawn, and they turned him babyface the night after WrestleMania 11. Then it went on for him to feud with Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation. Sid was his opponent for 3 straight pay-per-views, which weren't exactly in-ring classics as they're remembered. He battled with Jim Cornette's Empire of Heels with Yoko and Davey Boy, who wasn't exactly a white-hot heel at the time, and Owen, who, a lot of great things can be said about Owen, but I don't ever think you would look at him as a guy that was, a main event top heel, in my opinion. And then after just about a year of Diesel, they decided to go back to the safety net that was Bret. And the funny thing was, when they went back to the safety net that was Bret, almost immediately they went back to the Diesel Kevin Nash that got over in the first place. The guy that was just badass, kick-ass, took no prisoners, and the fans liked him again.
Well, what surprises me about that, it took them so long to realize it.
That the sports entertainment
See,
Kevin Nash wasn't going to click.
Once you get that big machine rolling, it's hard to put the brakes on it overnight, because now you got publications going out and cards booked and this coming and merchandise ordered and this. Now they're 6 months ahead. So to try to pull all that back in a short amount of time is impossible. So you just got to suffer through it.
And there was a lot of suffering going on,
yeah.
as you could tell by the houses. Now,
Hey, I've been in some houses. I would tell the guys, if we have a riot, somebody help the fans, because we got them outnumbered.
Yeah, a 95 was a bad year. Now, were you on the road full time with the Blue Brothers, or did you just do TVs?
No, I was on the road.
You managed full time on the road. Okay, so you suffered through it like everybody else.
Oh yeah, I did.
Some of the managers I know, they would just do the TV shots, and that
No,
was
I was on the road with them. And the funny thing, when the Blues quit, I didn't even know they were going to quit.
They didn't even tell you?
No, they didn't tell me.
Really?
Ronnie come up to me and says, Donnie come up to me. He's the younger one. And he said, Ronnie just quit and walked out. I went, what the hell? Now I don't have the guy, right? And then like what one twin does, the other twin does.
Right.
And it was a week or two later, then Donnie was gone. Now I'm sitting there not managing anybody. Which then that entered Bradshaw.
A man that you share the same birthday with.
I sure do. So he came in on the first night. I forgot where it was. I was doing nothing. I went to the show for no reason. I just went there. I guess to collect $200. I guess. Pick
It's
that
almost like Monopoly.
pick up that magical payday, and Bradshaw was in the room, and I'm thinking. He told me the story. He had come from Germany, and he's there for the tryout. And I says, well, let me throw an idea at you. He said, what? I said, what about me going to the ring with you tonight? And he said, hey, fine with me, because it's not going to affect him anyway. So then I run it by Bruce Pritchard, and he said, hey, pal, good with me. And sometimes you don't know they like it till they see it. Mm-hmm. And then they saw me with Bradshaw, and Vince liked it. So they put me with Bradshaw, and that's how I got with him.
Oh, we're going to get there as the timeline goes on. I thought that was actually a really good grouping. It gave someone that was a newcomer the credibility of someone that had been around for quite a while. Even if fans that knew you from outside of WWF, from your stints in WCW, Memphis, and other parts of the country, and so on and so forth. But we talked about a kind of softer, funnier Diesel, kind of a sad story on January the 22nd. We lost a man, I don't know if you would have crossed paths with him, but the Crusher, Jerry Blackwell. Any memories of him?
Oh, I remember when he started.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. He was I spent most of my time in Tennessee, and Blackwell, he was from one of those mountain towns in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Where did they bill him from? Was it Georgia?
He was billed from Georgia, yeah?
Yeah, he was from there. Mm-hmm. He's one of them. He's one of those, what they call the mountaineers, I guess, in Georgia. And I mean, that's what they they had a name for him down in Georgia. I can't remember what it was, but and he talked just like him. He had that southern drawl, and nice guy, and actually a very, very good worker.
Yeah, for a
He
big
was
guy.
so
Yeah.
heavy, but he was actually very agile to be so heavy.
Mhm.
And he was always that way. You never caught him in the weight room, other than you catch him eating maybe. But yeah, I knew him pretty well.
And sad to see a guy so young go, but the element of sleaze that went along with it. WCW caught a lot of flack for it. It actually wound up in TV Guide magazine back in the day when that was a pretty
What was that?
popular publication. On WCW Saturday Night,
Yeah.
Mean Gene Okerlund teased that a former heavyweight champion that recently retired had died. And this was just probably 3 months after Ric Flair lost his quote-unquote retirement match to Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of fans were under the belief that they were going to learn that it was the Nature Boy that had died,
Yeah.
when in fact it was Jerry Blackwell, who a lot of WCW fans didn't know, an apple from an orange from.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of flack, and that's where the kind of the Scheme Gene name came from him for a while. On his
I never heard that before.
Yeah, it was. He'd do a pitch on the TV show 900 909 9900. Former.
I see.
He didn't say
So
world.
he was doing the hotline.
Yeah,
I
he
see.
didn't say world heavyweight champion. He just said a former heavyweight champion that recently retired has died.
That was-
Call the hotline.
That was phone bait, not clickbait.
Phone bag.
Phone bait to get you to dial that. And how much was it? $2.
$1.49 for the first minute, 99 cents each additional minute.
So you go and then you just hear all this.
What a sleazy thing to do, though, to try and make a money off the guys
Well,
passing like that. And,
it is.
and by the wording, they didn't really lie.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Blackwell held championships, and he was a heavyweight. But again, someone that recently retired heavyweight champion, who's the first guy that's going to pop into your mind, is Ric Flair, where he just lost that big retirement match to Hulk Hogan just a couple of months before that. But
Excuse me, let me check my encyclopedia. Will, do you remember that? See, my encyclopedia doesn't remember it.
well,
So,
Will is your
and
encyclopedia.
I've never heard of it either.
All right. Well, maybe that's why it's good I'm here then. Taking the meticulous notes. Even if I can't jog your memory, I'll...
So you were saying there's parts of wrestling that's a little bit sleazy. Really? That much? Yeah.
A smidge.
I agree with you.
A
Yeah,
smidge.
I
Just
do,
a smidge.
yeah.
Royal Rumble 1995 was your official TV debut, even though you had worked some TV tapings. Your memories of probably the worst Royal Rumble in the history of the company, but it took place right here in Tampa, Florida.
What's the date on this?
January 95.
Probably before I started. I didn't start on the road to mid-month or later.
Well, you had done a couple of TV tapings
I'd done the
before,
tapings,
but they
yes.
hadn't aired yet on TV.
I hadn't added me on the house shows.
Right. But for the Rumble, weren't you with the Blues at the Rumble?
Nope.
Oh, so they just came out themselves for the Rumble.
Were they in it?
Yes.
I wasn't here. I don't remember.
Really?
I think
Okay.
I was still. They were here by themselves. I'll tell you where I was. I was still in Puerto Rico.
Oh,
I was finishing
okay.
up there.
So you were trying to finish up business in Puerto Rico before you came to
Yes.
WWF. I gotcha. That was the same night, maybe more infamous than a kind of a boring Royal Rumble itself. The big angle they shot between Bam Bam Bigelow and NFL Hall of Famer
Yep.
Lawrence Taylor. Any memories of one of NFL's all-time greats getting involved in the king of sports?
I remember the WrestleMania between Bam Bam and Lawrence Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Lawrence Taylor. He played at the University of North Carolina. I remember when he played. Tremendous football player. Tremendous pro.
Mm-hmm.
And a nice guy. And I remember that match. I didn't know how it was going to be, but surprisingly, it wasn't that bad.
No, not at all.
It was because Lawrence was an athlete.
Yeah.
And all he has to do is be instructed a little bit. If you can do a football play, you can do this. I mean, but you couldn't remember a lot of football plays in a row, which is what wrestlers have to do. See, what a lot of people forget about wrestlers are stunt men, but they only have one shot at it.
Right.
Stunt
No
men can do
retake.
it over and over and over and over. We can't do it in wrestling business. You either do it and it looks good, or
or it's the shits.
Or you botched it.
Do you think that even though Lawrence Taylor was an NFL legend, certainly a mainstream celebrity in the New York area where he was on the New York Giants, was he the type of guy to try and replicate the magic they were looking for from 10 years earlier, from the first WrestleMania with Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, who were worldwide phenomenons at that point? LT was kind of, even though an NFL great, I would say he was regionalized, and I don't think they really got the...
No disrespect intended,
Mm-hmm.
but Lawrence Taylor had nowhere the coverage that Mr. T or Cyndi Lauper had. Because now with those two people, you're covering TV and music, so you're having those different genres, like melt right onto them. But Lawrence Taylor's only football.
Right.
So there was a lot of women who didn't know,
Right.
a lot of female fans, didn't know who in the hell Lawrence Taylor was. They could care less. But they knew who Cyndi Lauper was.
Yes.
They knew who Mr. T was.
And even you look at the sport, a lot of the time his face was covered by a helmet on top of it, as far as even the facial recognition would go,
Right.
They might have remembered him, I believe. Was he number 56, Dave? Yeah. LT? Wow, geez, you knew that too? Wow, I'm impressed by that. I can't believe you even know who Lawrence Taylor is. You're so young. But I thought, like you said, they got through the match fine. I mean, for a guy that had never worked a pro match, it was actually, fair. You had Pat Patterson in there giving him the spots and so on as the guest referee. But like you said, as far as trying to get the mainstream publicity, when you look back 10 years earlier at the first WrestleMania in '85 as opposed to '95, I mean, WrestleMania 1 was everywhere. It was all over MTV. When that was becoming the popular cable channel amongst that young demographic. The night before WrestleMania 1, Hogan and Mr. T co-hosted Saturday Night Live, which was one of the most popular shows on television. So you really couldn't turn anywhere if you had a television set and not have some kind of an idea that Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper were getting involved in this wrestling thing, quote unquote. Then you have this big guy with the blonde hair and the big mustache all muscled up. And you learn he's Hulk Hogan, and he turned into a household name, and it just...
Well, I want to ask you this.
Sure.
If they hadn't have found Hulk Hogan when they did, if they'd have found somebody else with a good body and did the same thing the Hulk did, would he gotten over the same way, you think?
I think so.
I think so, too.
I think Jimmy,
I think the machine got him over.
I think if Jimmy didn't have all of his problems, he could have been right up there. He was so over before the national expansion began. He was so hot in that territory, but he had all of the drug problems that he did. There was the murder or the death, however you want to classify it, of the Nancy Argentino, his mistress.
Talking about Snuka.
Snuka, yeah. I mean, he was they talk about, we took wrestling out of smoky-filled rooms and so on. And to be honest, WWF, when it was more of a Northeast-based territory, on the weeknights, they did do a lot of small clubs, but that didn't mean they weren't selling out the Boston Garden, Hartford Civic Center, New Haven Coliseum, Madison Square Garden, Philadelphia Spectrum, Baltimore, Washington,
how often did they run the Garden?
MSG was every 3 weeks.
Okay.
So it was never an
every week. What about Philadelphia?
That was probably monthly. I know Boston, we had one Saturday a month.
That's okay.
So none of them were weekly towns. Probably the same thing, monthly.
Baltimore.
Monthly.
Okay. So you had a lot of big clubs that did well, but the rest of them were circled by smaller towns.
On the weeknights, yeah.
And how many of those smaller towns did they sell out? Most of them?
Did good business. Not everything is the magic that they try and recreate in their history, which was, sellouts here, there, and everywhere, because that wasn't a fact. Even at its peak, when they tried the national expansion in the 80s, when they tried to go into different territories, towns, I don't know if you'd remember this, but...
I do remember this.
And, I know you remember, but I'm just talking about one specific show. Right after WrestleMania 3, they took Hogan and Andre to Greensboro, and instead of 93,000 they did in Detroit, they did 1,200 people in Greensboro. So there were some places it took a while for the WWF magic to really... take hold. There were some places that resisted
a lot of
that
places,
enjoyed their territory.
What you ran into was territorial jealousy, I guess, because fans, and this was the fan side, they didn't accept WWF.
Right.
And it was almost like you're coming in and trying to take something from us that they really weren't. They was trying to give them something, but they didn't want it.
It was almost like a kid being given a step parent, you know?
Yep.
Someone they weren't used to, someone they really didn't want around. They wanted the wrestling that they knew.
Because
the
you
wrestling
even
they
find out
loved.
today with WWE and AEW. You found the same thing with WWE and TNA. It's just those WWE fans are just hardcore fans, and the AEW and the TNA fans were hardcore.
There's some fans that like everything. There's some fans that like some groups. There's some fans that are just diehard specific to that one promotion, that one territory, however you wanted to classify it. But it wasn't all sellouts everywhere. I mean, it continued to expand and do well, as you know, everywhere they went as time went on. But, you know, in the 80s, as much as they try and say, again, you know, we were in these smoke-filled clubs and so on.
And they were.
They were in some smoke-filled clubs, but they were also selling out the biggest buildings in the biggest part of the country.
That's something else that a lot of people don't understand. We used to work in these small clubs, these National Guard armories, and these gyms. Everybody was smoking.
So they really were
So when
smoke-filled.
no kidding. And when you go out there, the whole arena is full of smoke, and you're trying to suck oxygen out through that smoke. It's a damn wonder we didn't all die from damn lung cancer ourselves.
Right, yeah.
Because, you know, when you talk about some of the things we had to go through, that was one of them. Because those people out there, I would go out sometimes, it's just like just a white cloud. Everybody smoking. And nobody thought anything about it.
Right.
And especially when we got in the ring and we couldn't get oxygen, yeah, we could have died out there, I guess. Nobody would have given a crap.
Well, I tell you, when I started to go to the Garden, I was 6. And it was just such a great experience. I remember, I could tell you the lineup, at least the top 3 or 4 matches from all of those monthly Boston shows, from the first time I went in, not even the first grade yet, from August of 86 through the building closed in May of 95. And I couldn't tell you some of the matches on Raw from a few weeks ago. You know
I was
what I mean?
on the last card in the Boston.
You
Garden.
were.
And I think that was the last event too, wasn't it?
No. No,
but I was on the
building
last.
was open through September.
I was on the last card, last WWF F card in the Garden.
We're going to get there because I remember it well, and that was the last really big the first, other than Survivor Series, the first big house they'd drawn in several years because the business, as we noted.
Okay,
was
where the
dead.
Garden is now?
Yeah.
Was that built? They tore that building down and rebuilt it right
What
there?
is there right now is first where they built the new garden behind the old garden that you were on. And then they tore that down and they put the parking lot there for the new building.
I see.
Now they've redone it where the parking for the talent or for whatever the performance may be, they now park underground.
Go in the building.
And they actually built a very nice mall where the old original garden used to be. And there's still the train station underneath, and then there's the new Boston Garden. It was that signal number 1 and number 2 over there, Mr. Willis. That was the second one. So again, as we continue this trip down memory lane, so much to talk about. We haven't even made it through your first month there yet, but we have to wrap up the show for this episode. Again, folks, if you're having fun, you're enjoying it, the Premier Chat is going on to the right. Type some messages. Let us know what you think of having Dutch with us. The Super Chat button is always open if you want to tip the bartender, but I wouldn't put that on camera. Also, if you're not watching the premiere live, you can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, if you really want to help keep Wrestling Legends working, share these memories and stories that WWE often forgets about nowadays. The best way to do it is over on patreon.com/Boston Wrestling. For the price of a cup of coffee, you get early ad-free access to Wrestling Insiders. You can check out our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library that's been seen by millions online and millions on the Howard Stern Show. We give you some Patreon exclusives, and again, you get guys like Dutch out of the house, Marty out of the house, Tony for his $55 paydays, and so on and so forth.
Did you pay him $55?
Of course not. Come on.
I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna tell him you said that about him.
What did I say?
I'm just gonna tell him.
Did I tell you that I actually ran into him this weekend?
No, you didn't.
Oh, that's a fun story too. And of course, the eBay store, coronavirus may have killed the nightlife, but the eBay store is open 24/7 around the globe. Get some great wrestling merchandise for your man cave. And again, every time you make a purchase, not only do we give you that on-air shout-out for helping us keep the family rolling, but you get some great merchandise for your man cave. For my friend Dutch Mantell, all of the great people in this room helping out, whether it be an animal like Lance, a man, well, I'm not even going to say anything about poor Vicente. He's been the brunt of a lot of jokes. The junior ambassadors here for the first time, and everybody else, even Dave Willis back there, monitoring not only 70s Jefferson episodes, but keeping the time on the show itself. I'm Dan Marty. We will see you next week on Wrestling Insider Special Edition, and tomorrow night, 10 p.m., the No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll show that is Party with Marty continues. I tell you, Dutch, a side note, I took the man in the gray t-shirt over there to Universal Studios in the amusement parks last month, and I kept my computer on, and he came across one of the Party with Marty episodes as I was in the shower, and I said, what is he talking about? And he said, things I've never heard before in my life. So
Is that true?
I think Annie the Ass Eater came up from the old Hilton at the Boston Garden.
Oh my God.
All right, well, for Dutch, I'm Dan. We'll see you soon, folks. Good night.
The World Wrestling Federation was live at the Providence Civic Center in Providence, Rhode Island, Sunday, July the 7th, 1996, the night the NWO was formed at WCW Bash at the Beach. In the opening contest, Duke the Dumpster Droese beat Leif Cassidy. Salvatore Sincere replacing Owen Hart with the win over Barry Horowitz. In a non-title match, the Godwins defeated WWF Tag Team Champions the Smokin' Guns and the Body Donnas. Jake the Snake Roberts victorious over Justin Hawk Bradshaw, replacing Davey Boy Smith. The Undertaker beat Mankind via countout. WWF Intercontinental Champion Ahmed Johnson retained the title over Goldust. In a no-DQ match, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Savio Vega. Mark Mero with the win over Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And in the main event, the WWF World Champion Shawn Michaels retained the title over Vader. If you were in Providence live, share your memories in the comment section below. Use the links in the description box to keep Wrestling Legends working in our eBay store and on our world-renowned Patreon streaming service so we can bring you more interactive superstar shoot interviews to relive the good old days of professional wrestling. Check it out. Boston wrestling sports in the MWF explodes into a new year with professional wrestling content galore and need you to join our family. Every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. after our Monday Night Raw review, it's Wrestling Insiders at your house with WWE Hall of Famer Mr. USA Tony Atlas. Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. after NXT and AEW, join rotating legends on Wrestling Insiders Special Edition. Every Thursday night at 10 p.m. after our NXT and Dynamite review, it's Marty Jannetty's No Holds Barred Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll journey on Wrestling Insiders Party with Marty. Friday night after SmackDown, don't miss John Cena Sr.'s Wrestling Insiders Fabulous Fridays. Plus, look for classic clips, history videos, bonus live episodes, pay-per-view watch-alongs, and more. For less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, get early ad-free access to our Wrestling Insider talk shows, our acclaimed studio shoot interview DVD library, and help keep Wrestling Legends working during the worst of times